I stared at the grade posted outside his office door like it might change if I looked hard enough. F. The letter blurred as my eyes burned. I blinked hard, refusing to let the tears fall in the middle of the hallway where anyone could see. An F in Professor Ashford's Advanced Literary Theory class, the class I'd aced every assignment in, the class where I'd turned in my final paper 2 weeks early because I was that confident. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over my advisor's contact. One failed class meant losing my scholarship. Losing my scholarship meant dropping out. Dropping out meant crawling back home to a life I'd fought like hell to escape. Mr. Chen, his voice cut through my spiral, deep, controlled, the same voice that had praised my thesis presentation 3 weeks ago. I turned. Professor Ashford stood in his office doorway, tailored shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. At 34, he was the youngest tenured professor in the English department, also the most infuriating. "We need to discuss your performance," he said, stepping aside. "Come in." It wasn't a request. I followed him into his office, the door clicking shut behind us with a finality that made my stomach drop. The space smelled like old books and his cologne, something dark and expensive that I'd never been able to place. He moved behind his desk but didn't sit. Instead, he leaned against it, arms crossed, studying me with those sharp gray eyes that always made me feel like he could see straight through every defense I'd built. "There's been a mistake," I said, hating how my voice shook. "I know I didn't fail that class. My final paper alone was worth 40% of the grade, and I—" "Sit down, Kai." The use of my first name stopped me cold. He never used first names. It was always Mr. Chen, Miss Rodriguez, Mr. Park, professional distance maintained at all costs. I sat. He rounded the desk, pulling my file from a drawer. When he opened it, I saw my final paper, covered in his red ink, margins filled with notes in his precise handwriting. "Your paper was exceptional, as always." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Then why?" "You're graduating in May." The statement hung between us. I stared at him, confusion warring with the sick feeling spreading through my chest. "Yes," I said slowly, that's the plan." "And after graduation, you have that position lined up in New York." He'd remembered. I'd mentioned it once, months ago, when he'd asked about my post-graduation plans during office hours. I hadn't expected him to file it away. "Professor Ashford, I don't understand what—" "You're repeating this class." His jaw tightened, and for the first time since I'd known him, his composure cracked at the edges. "You'll take it this summer, with me." The words didn't make sense. None of this made sense. "I can't retake it this summer. I'll lose my scholarship. I'll lose my apartment. I'll lose everything. I'd lose everything I'd worked for." He moved then, coming around the desk to stand in front of me, too close, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "I've already spoken to the dean. Your scholarship will be maintained through the summer semester. Your housing will be covered. You'll take the class as an independent study. Just you and me." "Just you and me?" My pulse thundered in my ears. "Why would you do this?" His hand lifted, fingers brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. The touch was so gentle, so deliberate that I forgot to breathe. "Because I'm not ready to let you go yet." The world tilted. I should have stood up, should have demanded he change my grade back, should have reported him to the dean, to the ethics board, to anyone who would listen. Instead, I sat frozen as his thumb traced the curve of my jaw. "This is insane," I whispered. You can't sabotage my grade because you want—" "What? More time?" "I can." His voice dropped lower, rougher. "I did." "You'll report him." "Will you?" The challenge in his tone made heat pool low in my stomach, because he was right. He was absolutely right, and we both knew it. I wouldn't report him. I'd spent 2 years pretending I didn't notice the way his gaze lingered on me during lectures, pretending I didn't feel the electricity that crackled between us when he handed back my papers, fingers brushing mine a second longer than necessary. Pretending I hadn't started sitting in the front row just so I could watch him teach, mesmerized by the passion in his voice when he discussed Faulkner or Morrison. "You're my student," I weakly said. "For 3 more months." His hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair. "Then you'll graduate, then you'll leave, and I'll never see you again." That's how it's supposed to work. Fuck how it's supposed to work.
The profanity shocked me almost as much as the raw hunger in his eyes. Professor Ashford never cursed. He was all polish and control, every word measured, every action calculated. This man, gripping the back of my neck like I might disappear if he let go, this was someone else entirely. "I've wanted you since the first day you walked into my classroom," he said, voice rough. "You sat in the back, trying to be invisible, but I saw you. The way you lit up when we discussed Wilde, the way you argued with me about Hemingway's misogyny, the way you bit your lip when you were thinking." His thumb brushed over my bottom lip as if summoning the gesture. I told myself it didn't matter what I wanted. You were my student, off limits, untouchable. He laughed, bitter. And then you mentioned New York, mentioned leaving, and I realized I was running out of time. "So you failed me." It should have made me angry. It did make me angry, but beneath the anger was something else, something dangerous and intoxicating. "So I failed you," he agreed, "so I could have more time to make you see what's been building between us, more time to make you want this as much as I do." "You're risking everything," I said. "Your career, your reputation." "Do you think I don't know that?" His grip tightened in my hair, pulling my head back. "Do you think I haven't spent every night for the past 2 years hating myself for wanting you, for dreaming about you, for imagining all the ways I could make you fall apart under my hands?" My breath caught, heat flooded through me, and I knew he could see it in my face, the want I'd been suppressing for so long. "This is wrong," I whispered. "I know. We could both lose everything." "I know. I should walk out of here and never come back." His eyes burned into mine. "But you won't." God help me, he was right. When his lips finally met mine, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate and consuming, 2 years of restraint shattering in an instant. I should have said it, should have ended this before it started. "I can't," I admitted, voice breaking. "I can't tell you that." The smile that crossed his face was equal parts triumph and devastation. "Then you're mine," he whispered, "for the summer, for however long we have, you're mine." And despite every warning bell going off in my head, despite knowing this would end in flames, I nodded, because I'd been his since the first time he'd looked at me like I was the only person in the room. I just hadn't admitted it until now. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment with Professor Ashford's number saved in my phone and a text waiting. "My office, 4 p.m., don't be late." I stared at the message, heart racing. Yesterday felt like a fever dream. The kiss, his confession, the way he'd held me like I was something precious and forbidden all at once. We hadn't gone further than kissing. He'd pulled back after several minutes, jaw tight with restraint, and told me to go home, told me to think about what I was agreeing to. I'd thought about nothing else. Classes felt surreal. I sat through my morning seminar in a daze, barely registering the discussion about postmodern narrative structures. Every time I tried to focus, I felt his hands in my hair, heard his voice saying, "You're mine." At 3:55 p.m., I stood outside his office door, hand raised to knock. The door opened before I could knock. "You're early," Professor Ashford said. He'd changed from this morning's lecture. No tie now, shirt unbuttoned at the collar, less armor. "You said don't be late." I said 4 o'clock. "It's close enough."
Something flickered in his eyes, amusement maybe, or satisfaction. He stepped aside. "Come in." The door clicked shut behind me, and suddenly the office felt half its normal size. He moved to the windows, drawing the blinds. The late afternoon sun filtered through, casting stripes of gold across his desk. "We need to establish ground rules," he said, turning to face me. "Rules. If we're doing this, if you're serious about this, we do it my way." He crossed his arms, every inch the professor again. "First rule, no one can know. Not your friends, not your roommate, no one. If this gets out, we're both finished." I nodded. I already figured that much. "Second rule, when we're in public, nothing changes. I'm still Professor Ashford. You're still my student. We maintain professional distance." "Okay."
Third rule. His voice dropped. "When we're alone like this, you call me by my name." My breath caught. "I don't know your first name." "It's Marcus." Marcus. I'd never thought of him as anything other than Professor Ashford. Hearing his first name felt intimate in a way that made my skin flush. "Marcus," I repeated, testing it. His eyes darkened. Again. "Marcus." He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, backing me against the door. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. "I've imagined you saying my name in about 1,000 different ways," he murmured, "but hearing it is better than any fantasy." I hadn't known he was department chair. There was so much I didn't know about him beyond the controlled persona he showed in class. "Tell me about New York, the job you're supposed to start in June." It took me a second to remember how to form words. "Publishing house, editorial assistant position. It's everything I've wanted." "And if you stayed here for the summer?" "I'd have to defer my start date." My hands found their way into his hair, softer than I'd imagined. "They might not hold the position." "Would that be so terrible?" I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "Are you asking me to give up my dream job?" "No." His expression turned serious. "I'm asking if you'd consider delaying it. 3 months, Kai. Give me 3 months to show you what we could be." "And then what? I leave for New York in August and we just end?" "I don't know." His honesty gutted me. This was a man who had everything together, who commanded respect with a single look, who never showed weakness, and here he was, admitting he didn't have a plan beyond keeping me close. 3 months, I heard myself say. "But I need something from you, too. Anything. Change my grade back. Give me the A I earned." His jaw tightened, but I pressed on. "You want me to trust you, to believe this is real and not just some power trip? Then prove it. Give me back what I worked for." We stared at each other. I could see the war in his eyes, the desire to keep the leverage, the one thing forcing me to stay. Finally, he nodded. "Done. I'll submit the grade change tomorrow." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by terror, because now there was nothing keeping me here except choice, except want. "Now kiss me," I said. "Kiss me like you mean it." He did. The summer session started on a Monday in late May. The campus was eerily empty, most students gone home or to internships. The English building felt like a ghost town. Perfect for keeping secrets. Our first class was scheduled for 10 a.m. in Professor Ashford's, Marcus's, office. I'd spent the weekend oscillating between excitement and dread, unable to believe I was really doing this. I knocked at 9:58. "Come in." He sat behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, looking every bit the serious academic. Then he glanced up, and heat flared in his eyes. "Close the door." I did. Locked it. "Come here." I crossed to the desk. He pushed his chair back, creating space, and patted my lap. My eyes widened. "You want me to sit?" This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of thing that would destroy us both if anyone found out. But the building was empty, the door was locked, and I wanted this more than I wanted to be careful. I straddled his lap, knees on either side of his thighs. His hands immediately found my hips, gripping tight. "We're supposed to be reviewing literary theory," I said, breathless. "We will, in a minute." His mouth was hot against my skin, teeth scraping, tongue soothing. I tilted my head back, giving him better access, and felt him smile against my throat. "You like that," he murmured. Not a question. "Yes. Tell me what else you like." "I like—" Words scattered as his hand slid under my shirt, palm flat against my stomach. "I like when you touch me."
"Where?" "Everywhere." His laugh was low and wicked. "That's not specific enough. Use your words, Kai." Heat flooded my face. I'm not good at this." He pulled back, studying my face. "At what?" "Talking about—" I gestured vaguely between us. "This. I don't have a lot of experience with—" Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by something possessive and dark. "How much experience?" he asked carefully. "Some. Not a lot." I looked away. "This is humiliating." His hand cupped my jaw, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Kai, look at me. There is nothing about you that's humiliating. Do you understand?" I nodded, throat tight. "How much?" he asked again, softer. I've been with 2 people. Both were brief. Both were—" I struggled for the word. "Forgettable." His thumb traced my bottom lip. "I'm going to make sure nothing about this is forgettable." Then he kissed me, deep and slow, taking his time. His hands roamed my back, learning the shape of me through my clothes. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "We should actually study," he said, voice rough. "If you fail this course legitimately, I'll never forgive myself." I laughed despite myself. "What's the lesson plan?" "Deconstructionist theory." He reached past me, grabbing a book from his desk, specifically how Derrida's concept of différance challenges traditional binary oppositions. For the next hour, we actually studied. He was a brilliant teacher one-on-one, patient and insightful. I found myself getting lost in the discussion, forgetting the inappropriateness of my position on his lap, until his hand would absently stroke my thigh, reminding me exactly where I was. Around noon, my stomach growled loudly. Marcus smiled. "Hungry?" "Starving." "There's a Thai place 2 blocks away. I'll order delivery." So I stayed, tucked against his chest while he called in our order, his hand stroking patterns on my back. It felt domestic in a way that scared me. This wasn't just attraction. This wasn't just excitement. This was intimacy. When the food arrived, I reluctantly climbed off his lap. We ate at his desk, arguing about whether Foucault's theories on power structures applied to contemporary romance novels. It was the kind of ridiculous, passionate debate I'd always loved about studying literature. "You're wrong," I pointed my chopsticks at him accusingly. "Power dynamics are fundamental to romance narratives. The whole genre is built on negotiating consent and control." "I'm not saying power isn't present. I'm saying reducing every romantic interaction to a Foucauldian power struggle misses the genuine connection between characters. But that connection exists within—" I stopped mid-sentence, as his hand slid up my thigh under the desk. "Within what?" he asked innocently. "That's not fair." "Finish your argument." His fingers traced higher, and my breath caught. "I can't think when you're—" "When I'm what? When I'm touching you? When I'm reminding you who's really in control of this power dynamic?" I should have had a clever retort, should have turned his own theories against him. Instead, I just grabbed his collar and pulled him into a kiss. We didn't get much more studying done that afternoon. The second week, he took me to his apartment. "Are you sure this is smart?" As we pulled into the parking garage of a sleek building downtown. "What if someone sees?" "No one here knows I'm a professor." He parked, then turned to me.
And you look like you could easily be a graduate student. We're just two adults who happen to be spending time together. Except we weren't. We were a professor and a student, engaged in exactly the kind of relationship that destroyed careers. His apartment was on the 15th floor, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city skyline. Books lined every wall. A guitar sat in the corner, covered in dust. "You play?" I asked, surprised. "Used to. Haven't had time in years." He hung his keys by the door, suddenly looking younger, more unsure. "Do you want a drink?" "Water's fine." He moved to the kitchen, and I wandered to the windows. The city spread out below us, glittering in the early evening light. From up here, the world looked small, manageable. "It's beautiful," I said when he returned, handing me a glass. "It's home." He stood beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. "You don't talk about yourself much. In class, I mean."
Professional boundaries, his mouth quirked. Ironic, given our current situation. "Tell me something real," I said. "Something you've never told a student." He was quiet for a long moment. "I never planned to be a professor. I wanted to be a novelist. Wrote 3 books in my 20s, all terrible. When the last rejection letter came in, I was bartending to pay rent, barely surviving. A professor I'd had in undergrad offered me a teaching assistantship, said I had a gift for explaining complex ideas. So I went to grad school, and here I am. Do you still write?" "Sometimes, mostly academic articles now. The stories dried up years ago." He looked at me, something vulnerable in his expression. "What about you? Why literature?" "Because books saved my life." The words came out before I could stop them. Growing up, home was difficult. My parents fought constantly. My dad drank. Mom worked 3 jobs. Books were the only place I felt safe, the only place where things made sense. Marcus's hand found mine, fingers interlacing. "Is that why you never go home?" "How did you—" "You always stayed on campus during breaks. I noticed." Of course he had. He noticed everything about me. "They're not bad people," I said, "just complicated. And I needed distance to become someone different than who they wanted me to be." "Who did they want you to be?" "Practical, stable, someone who chose accounting over English literature." I laughed bitterly. "Someone who wouldn't risk everything for a dream job in New York or a forbidden relationship with his professor." "Do you regret it? This? Us?" Marcus asked quietly. "Ask me in 3 months." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." He cupped my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone. "I want to take you to bed, Kai, but I need you to be sure. Once we cross that line, there's no going back." My heart hammered. "I'm sure." "Are you? Because you're shaking." "I was. I couldn't stop." "I'm nervous, not because I don't want this, because I want it too much." Something shifted in his expression, tenderness mixing with desire. "We'll go slow, and if you want to stop at any point, I won't. But if you do—" "Marcus!" I kissed him, pouring 2 years of longing into it. "Take me to bed." He did. His bedroom was simple. White walls, large bed, more books stacked on the nightstand. The windows overlooked the city, curtains open to the darkening sky. He kissed me thoroughly before his hands found the hem of my shirt, pulling it over my head. Cool air hit my skin, and I shivered. "Cold?" he murmured against my throat. "No, never." I was burning. His shirt followed mine to the floor. I'd seen him in casual clothes before, but never like this. Bare-chested, skin warm under my palms, muscles shifting as he moved. He was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. We fell onto the bed together, a tangle of limbs and breathless kisses. His weight pressed me into the mattress, solid and real. This was happening. This was really happening. When his hand moved to the button of my jeans, I grabbed his wrist. "Wait!" I gasped. He froze immediately.
Too much? No, I struggled to articulate the feeling. I want to remember this, everything about this moment. His expression softened. He kissed me gently, sweetly, nothing like the desperate hunger from before. Then we'll go slow, he promised. We have all night. We did go slow, torturously, wonderfully slow. He mapped every inch of my skin with his mouth, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch into his touch. When we finally came together, it was intense and overwhelming, and exactly what I'd needed, without knowing I'd needed it. Afterwards, I lay in his arms, head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked softly. "More than okay." I tilted my head to look at him. Yeah, it was. His smile was satisfied and tender. "I should probably head home soon. My roommate will wonder." "Stay." His arm tightened around me. "Please, just tonight." It was dangerous. It was reckless. If my roommate asked questions, I'd have to lie. I stayed anyway. June melted into early July, and we fell into a rhythm. 3 times a week, we'd meet in his office for tutoring sessions that inevitably involved more kissing than studying, though we did actually cover the material. He was determined I'd pass legitimately, refusing to let me slack off, even as his hands wandered under my shirt. On weekends, I'd go to his apartment. We'd order takeout, watch old movies, make love until the early morning hours. It felt like playing house, pretending we were just 2 people who'd met under normal circumstances, who didn't have to hide. But we did have to hide.
We were careful, paranoid even. We never arrived or left together, never so much as looked at each other the wrong way in the few public spaces we couldn't avoid. I deleted texts immediately. He kept no photos. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt electric. "We should go somewhere," I said one Saturday in mid-July. We were tangled in his sheets, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. "Take a trip, get out of the city for a weekend." Marcus's hand stilled on my back. "That's risky." "Everything we're doing is risky." "True." He was quiet for a moment. "Where would you want to go?" "I don't know. Anywhere. The beach, maybe? Or the mountains?" I propped myself up on my elbow, looking down at him. "I just want to be somewhere we don't have to hide, where I can hold your hand in public without worrying someone will see." The longing in his eyes mirrored my own. "Let me think about it, see if there's somewhere far enough away that we'd be safe." "Okay." I kissed him softly. "Thank you." "For what?" "For considering it, for not immediately shutting me down." His hand cupped my cheek. "Kai, you could ask me for almost anything, and I'd find a way to give it to you." The weight of those words settled in my chest. This was more than attraction now, more than forbidden excitement. We were falling in love. I was falling in love. The realization terrified me. The following Tuesday, everything nearly fell apart. I was leaving Marcus's office at 6 p.m., trying to look casual, when I literally ran into Professor Chen from the history department. "Whoa, sorry." I steadied myself, heart racing. Wasn't watching where I was going. Professor Chen smiled, but his eyes were curious. "No worries. Burning the midnight oil with Professor Ashford, I see?" "I'm just doing some summer coursework," I said, praying my voice sounded normal. "Retaking a class." "Ah, well, Marcus is an excellent teacher. Though I have to say I don't usually see students here so late." His tone was light, conversational, but something in his expression made my stomach drop. He must be going above and beyond for you. "He's very dedicated," I managed. "That he is." Professor Chen's gaze lingered on me a beat too long. "Have a good evening." I walked away, forcing myself not to run. Once I was out of the building, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. "We have a problem."
Marcus called 30 seconds later. What happened? I explained the encounter, my voice tight with panic. Marcus, the way he looked at me, he knows, or at least suspects. Chen's nosy, but he's not malicious. Still, we need to be more careful. No more evening sessions. We meet only during regular office hours from now on. When will I see you then? Really see you? My apartment, weekends only. And Kai? His voice softened. It's going to be okay, I promise. But I wasn't sure I believed him. That weekend, Marcus surprised me. Pack a bag, he said when I arrived at his apartment Saturday morning. Enough for 2 nights. My heart leaped. You found somewhere? There's a cabin about 3 hours north, middle of nowhere. I rented it under a different name. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my forehead. 2 days where we don't have to hide, where we can just be. I wanted to cry. Instead, I kissed him. Let me grab my stuff. The drive north was surreal. We held hands across the center console, something we'd never been able to do before. Marcus played old rock music, singing along off-key, and I discovered he had a terrible voice, and it was somehow endearing. The cabin was perfect, small and rustic, surrounded by pine trees with a view of a lake that sparkled in the late afternoon sun. The nearest neighbor was miles away. It's beautiful, I breathed, standing on the porch. Not as beautiful as you. I turned to find Marcus watching me with an expression that made my breath catch. That was incredibly cheesy, I said. It was. I don't care. He crossed to me, pulling me into his arms. I'm allowed to be cheesy here. No students to impress, no colleagues to maintain dignity in front of. Just you and me. We spent that evening on the porch, drinking wine and talking about everything and nothing. Marcus told me about growing up in a small town in Ohio, how he'd always felt out of place. I told him about my complicated relationship with my parents, how guilty I felt for wanting something different than what they'd planned for me. You're allowed to want your own life, Marcus said. That doesn't make you selfish. Doesn't it? They sacrificed everything for me. And here I am, choosing English literature and this, choosing things that might destroy everything I've worked for. What we're doing is risky, Marcus agreed. But Kai, you're 23 years old. You're allowed to take risks. You're allowed to make choices that scare you.
Are you scared? Terrified. His honesty gutted me. Every day I wake up knowing I could lose everything because of this. My job, my reputation, my entire career. But then I see you and I think... He stopped, jaw tightening. Think what? That you're worth it. That whatever happens, whatever consequences come, I'd rather have these months with you than a lifetime of wondering what if. I kissed him then, tasting wine and honesty and something that felt dangerously like forever. We made love that night in front of the fireplace, slow and tender, with the windows open so we could hear the lake lapping at the shore. Afterward, wrapped in blankets, Marcus played that dusty guitar from his apartment. He was rusty, fingers fumbling over the chords, but there was something intimate about watching him try. I haven't played for anyone in years, he admitted. Why not? Music was always just for me, something private. He looked up, meeting my eyes. But I want to share it with you. Sunday morning, we went swimming in the lake. The water was cold enough to steal my breath, but Marcus pulled me close, warming me with his body. We floated together, the sun beating down on us, and for a few perfect hours, I let myself forget about deadlines and consequences. I don't want to go back, I said as we lay on the dock afterward, letting the sun dry our skin. I know. Marcus laced his fingers through mine. But we have to. Tomorrow's Monday. What if we didn't? What if we just stayed? Kai. I'm serious. I rolled onto my side, facing him. What if we packed up and left? Went somewhere no one knows us, where you're not a professor and I'm not your student, where we could just be Marcus and Kai. The yearning in his eyes nearly broke me. And do what? How would we survive?
You could write, really write, like you always wanted. I could, I don't know, figure something out. You'd give up New York, your publishing dreams? I'd be giving them up for something better. No, his voice was firm. No, Kai, I won't let you do that. You've worked too hard to throw it all away for me. But you threw away your grade book for me. You risked everything. That was my choice, and it's one I'd make again. But I'm not letting you sacrifice your future. He sat up, pulling me with him. In 2 weeks, you're going to pass my class with the highest grade. You're going to graduate, and then you're going to New York to chase your dreams. And us? His silence was answer enough. I pulled away, standing up. So this is just temporary, a summer fling before I disappear from your life forever. That's not what I said, but it's what you meant. Anger flared in my chest, hot and bitter. You want me, but only on your terms, only as long as it doesn't disrupt your perfect plan. My perfect plan? Marcus stood, frustration hardening his features. Kai, I changed your grade to manufacture an excuse to keep you near me. I risked my entire career. I broke every ethical rule I've ever believed in. What part of that seems like I'm playing it safe? The part where you're already planning our ending. I'm being realistic. You have an incredible opportunity waiting for you. I'm not going to be the reason you miss it. What if I want you to be that reason? You say that now, his voice softened, turned sad. But in 5 years, when you're stuck in a small town, watching your friends succeed while you're waitressing and resenting me, you don't know that would happen. I don't know it wouldn't. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Kai, please, I'm trying to do the right thing here. The right thing would have been not failing me in the first place. The words hung between us, sharp and cutting. I regretted them immediately, but it was too late. Marcus's face went carefully blank. You're right, it would have been. Marcus, I didn't mean... We should head back. He turned toward the cabin. It's getting late. The drive home was silent. I stared out the window, watching the trees blur past, feeling like I'd ruined something precious. Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight, and neither of us knew how to bridge the distance that had opened between us. We didn't speak for 3 days. I attended our scheduled tutoring sessions, and they were torture. Marcus was nothing but professional, helpful, instructive, completely impersonal, like the past 2 months had never happened, like he never held me while I fell apart in his arms. By Friday, I couldn't take it anymore. We need to talk, I said as the session ended. There's nothing to discuss. We said what needed to be said. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Did you? Now he did look at me, and the pain in his eyes made my chest ache. Because you were right, Kai. What I did was wrong, manipulative. I convinced myself I was giving us a chance, but really I was just being selfish. Stop. I crossed to his desk, forcing him to meet my gaze. Yes, what you did was wrong, but I'm not some helpless victim. I made a choice. I chose this. I chose you. For how long? 3 months? 6? Until you wake up one day and realize what you've given up?
I don't know. The admission burst out of me. I don't know what happens in 6 months or a year or 5 years. I don't have it figured out. All I know is that right now, in this moment, I want to be with you. Can't that be enough? Marcus stood, coming around the desk. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheekbones. I'm terrified of losing you, he whispered. I'm terrified of being the reason you lose yourself. Then don't let me go yet. I covered his hands with mine. We have 2 more weeks. Let's not waste them fighting about a future we can't predict. He kissed me then, soft and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. Come home with me, he said. Tonight, please. I did. We made love with an urgency we hadn't had before, like we were running out of time, which I supposed we were. Afterward, lying in his bed, I made a decision. I'm going to defer New York, I said into the darkness. Marcus went rigid beside me. Kai, just for a semester, January start instead of June. I turned to face him. That gives us more time. Time to figure out what this is. Time to see if it's worth fighting for. You can't do that for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for us.
I pressed my hand over his heart, feeling it race beneath my palm. Marcus, I know you're scared. I am too. But I'd rather take the risk than spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. What if they don't hold your position? Then I'll find another one. I'm good at what I do. There will be other opportunities. What if I'm not worth it? His voice was barely a whisper. You are, I kissed him softly. You're worth it. This is worth it. He pulled me closer, burying his face in my neck. I felt wetness on my skin and realized he was crying. I don't deserve you, he said. Probably not, I smiled, despite the tears streaming down my own face, but you're stuck with me anyway. The last week of the session flew by in a blur of finals preparation and stolen moments. Marcus insisted we actually focus on my coursework, determined that I'd pass legitimately. We spent hours discussing Barths and Sontag and Butler, and despite everything, I loved it. Loved learning from him. Loved the way his eyes lit up when I made a connection he hadn't expected. The night before my final exam, we lay in his bed, my head on his chest. What if I actually fail this time? I asked. Marcus laughed. You won't. Your practice essays have been exceptional. But what if Then you retake it again in the fall, and I get more time with you. His arms tightened around me. Though I'd rather you pass on your own merit. Such high standards, Professor. Always. He kissed the top of my head. You're brilliant, Kai. You always have been. That's what made it so hard to stay away from you. Tell me about the first time you noticed me. You really want to know? Yes. He was quiet for a moment, fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. It was the third week of class. We were discussing Mrs. Dalloway, and everyone was giving surface-level observations about time and memory. Then you raised your hand. You were so nervous I could see your hand shaking. And you said something about how Clarissa's party wasn't about bringing people together, but about controlling how others perceived her, about the performance of connection versus actual intimacy. I barely remembered saying that. And I thought, this student understands something profound about human nature. After that, I couldn't stop noticing you. The way you'd chew your pen when you were thinking, the way you'd light up during discussions about queer theory, the way you always sat in the second row, never the first, like you wanted to be seen but not too seen. That's incredibly specific. I told you, I noticed everything about you. His voice turned rough. It was torture watching you every class, knowing I could never have you. You have me now. For how long? I propped myself up on my elbow, looking down at him. Stop doing that. Stop anticipating the ending before we've even reached it. I'm a pessimist. It's in my nature. Well, I'm an optimist, and I say we're going to figure this out. Now stop worrying about my exam and help me relax. His smile turned wicked. I can think of several ways to help you relax. Show me. He did. I passed the exam with a 98. Marcus called me into his office the day grades were posted, a rare smile on his face. Well done, he said, formally, then quieter. I'm proud of you. Thank you. I glanced at the closed door, the drawn blinds. Are we safe? For a few minutes. I crossed to him, and he pulled me into his arms, holding me tight.
You did it, he murmured into my hair. Legitimately, no manipulation, just your own brilliance. I had a good teacher. You had a teacher who was desperately in love with you and struggling to maintain any semblance of professionalism. My heart stopped. What did you say? Marcus pulled back, meeting my eyes. I'm in love with you, Kai. I've been in love with you for longer than I want to admit. And I know that complicates everything, and I know you might not feel the same way, but I needed to tell you, before you graduate, before everything changes. You love me? Desperately, inconveniently, completely. I kissed him, pouring everything I felt into it. When I finally pulled back, we were both breathless. I love you too, I said. I've been terrified to say it, but I do. I love you. The smile that spread across his face was radiant. Really? Really. He kissed me again, deeper this time, hands fisting in my hair the way I loved. When someone knocked on the door, we sprang apart, both flushed and disheveled. One moment, Marcus called. Then, to me, quietly, "Tonight, my place. We need to talk about what happens next." I nodded, slipping out the side door just as he opened the main one. That night, Marcus had wine and Chinese takeout waiting. We ate on his couch, my feet in his lap, and for the first time in weeks, the anxiety eased. "I contacted the dean," Marcus said. "Officially, you've completed your summer coursework. You're cleared to graduate in the fall ceremony." "Okay." "Which means in 3 weeks, you're no longer my student." Hope flared in my chest. "Meaning?" "Meaning we can stop hiding." "Well," he amended, "not completely. Faculty relationships with recent students are still frowned upon. But in a year, 2 at most, no one would question it." "A year?" My voice came out small. "I know, it's not ideal, but Kai, I want to do this right. I want us to have a real chance." He set down his wine, taking my hands. "Here's what I'm thinking. You defer New York until January. That gives us 6 months together without the student-teacher complication. We see how it goes, and if it's still working in January, what happens in January? You go to New York, start your job, and I look for positions at Columbia, NYU, the New School, anywhere in the city. I have connections there. It's not impossible." I stared at him. "You'd move? For me?" "I'd do more than that." His voice was fierce. "Kai, I'm all in, completely. I know I haven't always showed it. No, I've been cautious and scared, but I mean it. If we're doing this, we're really doing it. Not halfway, not with 1 foot out the door. All the way." Tears streamed down my face. "You'd really leave here? Your job, your apartment, everything?" "For you, yes." He wiped my tears with his thumb. "You're not some summer fling, Kai. You're it for me, and I'm done pretending I don't know that." I launched myself at him, kissing him frantically. We ended up on the floor, a tangle of limbs and desperate touches, making love with an intensity that left us both shaking. Afterward, wrapped in the throw blanket from the couch, Marcus said, "We should probably move to the bed." "In a minute. I like it here." "On my living room floor?" "With you. I like being with you." His arms tightened around me. "I love you." "I love you too." We stayed on the floor until we fell asleep, and when I woke up in the morning to sunlight streaming through the windows and Marcus's steady heartbeat under my ear, I thought, this is what I want forever. The next few weeks were the happiest of my life. We were still careful, paranoid even, but the anxiety had lessened. I was officially no longer his student. We could breathe a little easier. Marcus took me to dinner at a restaurant an hour outside the city, where no one knew us. We held hands across the table. He kissed me in the parking lot under the stars. Small things, normal things, that felt revolutionary. "I could get used to this," I said as we drove home. "Dating like regular people?" "Yeah. No more sneaking around, no more locked doors and drawn blinds. We still need to be discreet until the fall semester ends. Once you're officially graduated—" "I know. I'm just saying it's nice, being able to do this." Marcus brought my knuckles to his lips. "It is nice, though I have to admit the sneaking around was also exciting." "Are you saying you're gonna miss it?" "Parts of it." His smile turned wicked. "The thrill of almost getting caught, the desperate stolen kisses, the way you'd look at me during office hours like you wanted to devour me." Heat flooded through me. "I can still look at you like that. Promise? Take me home and find out." He did.
But of course, nothing that good could last forever. 2 weeks before graduation, I ran into Professor Chen again. This time, Marcus was with me. We'd been careful, arrived separately at a coffee shop downtown, far from campus, sat at different tables. But when I got up to leave, I wasn't thinking. I smiled at Marcus, a real smile, intimate and warm, and he smiled back the same way. And Professor Chen saw it. I watched recognition dawn in his eyes, watched him put the pieces together, watched his expression shift from curious to knowing. "Professor Ashford," he said pleasantly, "fancy seeing you here."
Marcus's face went carefully blank. "David, just grading some finals." "And Mr. Chen, was it, from the summer session?" Professor Chen's gaze moved between us. "Funny coincidence, both of you being here." "The coffee's good," I said, proud of how steady my voice was. "Professor Ashford recommended it." "Did he?" Something sharp glinted in Professor Chen's eyes. "He's always been so attentive to his students, goes above and beyond, one might say." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. "Well, I should get going. Lots of graduation prep to do." "Of course. Congratulations on graduating, by the way." Professor Chen smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure Professor Ashford is very proud of your progress." I left before I could say something stupid, heart hammering. 20 minutes later, Marcus texted, "My apartment, now. We need to talk." I'd never driven so fast in my life. Marcus was pacing when I arrived, running his hands through his hair, every line of his body tense. "He knows," he said without preamble, "or at least strongly suspects. Do you think he'll report it?" "I don't know. David's always been a bit of a gossip, but he's not usually malicious." Marcus stopped pacing, facing me. "But if he does report it, if it gets out before you're officially graduated, we're both screwed." "You'll be fine. You're the student. But me?" He laughed bitterly. "I'll lose everything. My tenure, my reputation, any chance of getting another academic position." Fear clawed at my throat. "What do we do?" "We wait. See if he says anything. And in the meantime," Marcus crossed to me, cupping my face. "No more public meetings, no more coffee shops or restaurants. We stay here, in my apartment, until after graduation." 2 more weeks of hiding?" 2 more weeks, he agreed. "And then you're free. Then we're both free." I wanted to believe him, but the fear in his eyes told me he wasn't sure he believed it either. Professor Chen didn't report us, but he didn't stay silent either. Over the next 2 weeks, I started noticing looks from other faculty members, whispers that stopped when I walked by, a certain coolness from professors who'd always been friendly. Someone was talking, and we both knew who. "Let them talk," Marcus said when I brought it up. "In a week, you graduate. After that, there's nothing they can do." "But your reputation—" "Will survive," he kissed my forehead. "I've been here for 10 years, built relationships, published papers, earned respect. One rumor won't destroy that." I wanted to believe him, but I could see the worry in the tightness of his jaw, the way he checked his email obsessively, waiting for a summons from the dean that never came. Graduation day arrived with no formal complaints filed. Marcus had been right. Without proof, without you officially being his student when it mattered, there was nothing anyone could do. I walked across that stage in my cap and gown, accepted my diploma, and felt like I could finally breathe. Marcus was in the audience. He couldn't sit with my family, that would have been too obvious, but I found him in the crowd. When our eyes met, he smiled, and I saw everything there: pride, love, relief. After the ceremony, I had to endure lunch with my parents, who'd driven up for the occasion. They were subdued, still not understanding why I'd chosen literature over something practical, but they were trying. "What's next for you?" my father asked over mediocre pasta at the campus restaurant. "I have a job lined up in New York, starting in January, editorial assistant at a publishing house." "January?" my mother frowned. "What will you do until then?" "I'm staying here for the fall. There's a research project I want to work on." It wasn't entirely a lie. Marcus had suggested I could help him with his book, the one he'd started writing again, inspired by our situation. Forbidden academic romance, he'd called it, minus the happy ending our real life might or might not have. After my parents left, I went straight to Marcus's apartment. He opened the door before I could knock, pulling me inside and kissing me breathless. "You did it," he murmured against my lips. "You're officially graduated. Officially no longer your student. Officially mine in every way that matters, and I intend to celebrate thoroughly." We didn't leave his apartment for the rest of the weekend.
Summer settled over us like a warm blanket. Without the student-teacher complication, things eased.
We were still discreet. Faculty dating recent graduates was technically allowed but heavily frowned upon, but we didn't have to hide completely. Marcus took me to faculty events as his research assistant. We went to movies and museums and the farmer's market. Slowly, carefully, we built a life together. I moved some of my things into his apartment. Not officially. I kept my old place for appearance's sake, but my toothbrush appeared in his bathroom, my books mixed with his on the shelves. It felt real in a way it hadn't before. "Tell me about your book," I said one night in August. We were on his couch, my legs across his lap, both of us reading. "It's about a professor who falls in love with his student. Forbidden romance, ethical violations, the works." "How does it end?" "I haven't decided yet." "What are the options?" He set down his pages, meeting my eyes. "Option 1, they stay together, and he loses everything. His job, his reputation, his career, but he has her, and that's enough." "And option 2? "Option 2, she leaves for her dream job, and they try long distance. But the distance is too much, the complications too many, and eventually they drift apart. They both move on with their lives, always wondering what might have been." "Those are both sad endings." "Life is sad sometimes." "What about option 3? I moved into his lap, straddling him. "Option 3, she takes the job, and he follows her. They figure it out together. And yes, it's hard, and yes, there are complications, but they make it work because they love each other enough to try." "That's not realistic." "Why not?" "Because real life doesn't work that way. Real life is messy and complicated and worth fighting for," I interrupted. "Marcus, you're so busy planning for the worst-case scenario that you're missing what's right in front of you. We're happy. We're together. Why can't that be enough?" "Because I'm terrified of losing you." "You're not going to lose me." "You don't know that." "I don't." I framed his face with my hands, forcing him to meet my eyes. "But I'd rather have this, right now, with all its uncertainty, than a safe, predictable life without you." He kissed me then, deep and desperate, like he was trying to convince himself I was real. "I love you," he whispered against my lips. "God, I love you so much it terrifies me." "Good," I smiled. "Now come to bed and show me." September arrived with a reality check. Marcus got a call from Columbia. They had an open position in their English department. Prestigious, well paid, everything he'd ever wanted professionally. "Are you going to apply?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. We were in his kitchen, making breakfast. He'd been staring at his phone for 10 minutes, rereading the email. "I don't know," he said finally. "It's a huge opportunity, but it would mean leaving here, leaving the colleagues I've worked with for years, the department I helped build, leaving the place where you met me." "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" I set down the spatula, turning to face him. "Marcus, be honest. Are you hesitating because of the job or because you're scared of what comes next?" "Both," he admitted. "If I apply and get it, everything changes. We'd be in New York together, but I'd be starting over professionally. New colleagues who don't know me, new politics to navigate, and we'd be together publicly, which means dealing with judgment from people who think our relationship is inappropriate. And if you don't apply, then I stay here, safe, comfortable, and you go to New York alone in January, and we try long distance, and we already know how that story ends," I finished quietly. He looked miserable. "I'm sorry. I know I'm being impossible." "You're being scared. There's a difference." I crossed to him, wrapping my arms around his waist. "Apply for the job. If you get it, we'll figure out the rest together. If you don't, at least you tried." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, but at least you'll know you took the chance." He held me tight, face buried in my hair. "When did you become the brave one?" "I learned from the best. You took a chance on me, on us. Now let me return the favor." He applied. The waiting was torture. Marcus tried to act normal, but I could see the anxiety eating at him. He checked his email constantly, jumped every time his phone rang, couldn't focus on his classes.
October arrived, then November, and still no word. "Maybe it's a sign," he said one evening. We were grading papers together, or rather he was grading while I kept him company. "Maybe I'm not supposed to get the job."
Or maybe they're just slow. I looked up from my book. Academic hiring processes take forever, right? Usually, but it's been 2 months. Then maybe you should follow up. And seem desperate? And seem interested. I set down my book, moving to sit on the edge of his desk. "Marcus, you want this job. I know you do. So fight for it." He was quiet for a long moment, then reached for his laptop. "You're right. I'm calling them tomorrow." He did, and 3 days later he got the call. "They want me," he said, voice dazed. "They're offering me the position. I'd start in January." The same time as me. I screamed and launched myself at him, wrapping my legs around his waist. He laughed, spinning us around, both of us giddy with relief. "We're doing this," I said, pulling back to look at him. "We're really doing this. New York, together." "Together," he agreed. Then his smile faltered. "Kai, are you sure about this? Because once we're both in New York, once we're public about our relationship—" "I'm sure," I interrupted. "Marcus, I've never been more sure of anything. People will judge us. They'll say I manipulated you, that our relationship is inappropriate. Let them." I kissed him firmly. "I know the truth. You know the truth. That's all that matters. I don't want you to regret this. The only thing I'd regret is letting you go." I framed his face with my hands. "You're it for me, Marcus Ashford, and I'm done pretending otherwise." He kissed me then, and I tasted salt, tears, though I wasn't sure whose. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "You're right," I agreed, smiling, "but you're stuck with me anyway."
December was chaos. Marcus had to pack up his apartment, tie up loose ends with the university, and prepare for the move. I had to figure out logistics for my job, find us an apartment in New York, and deal with my parents' confusion about why I was moving with my research advisor. We decided to tell them the truth, or at least part of it. "We're dating," I explained over FaceTime. "Have been for a few months. It happened after I graduated. He got a job offer in New York around the same time I did, and we decided to move together." My mother looked skeptical. "Isn't he your professor?" "Was my professor, past tense." "How much older is he?" 11 years. The silence was deafening. "Is he good to you?" my father asked finally. The question surprised me. "Yes, very." "Then okay." He looked at my mother. "If he makes you happy and treats you well, okay." It wasn't enthusiastic acceptance, but it was more than I'd hoped for. Marcus's conversation with his parents went similarly. They were concerned about the age difference, the professional implications, but they could see he was happy. "I've never heard you sound like this, so alive, so sure of something." "That's because of Kai," Marcus admitted, glancing at me. "He makes me want to be brave." We found an apartment in Brooklyn, small but sunny, with exposed brick and huge windows. It was more expensive than either of us could afford alone, but together we could make it work. Together. That word never got old. On Christmas Eve, Marcus gave me a key to the new apartment. "I know we're not officially moving in until January," he said, "but I wanted you to have this, wanted you to know that I'm all in, that this is our place, our home." I kissed him, the key clutched in my fist like a promise. "I love you. I love you so much." "I love you too." He pulled me closer. "Thank you for being patient with me, for fighting for us when I was too scared to fight for myself." "Always," I promised. "I'll always fight for us." New Year's Eve, we were in our new apartment. The place was still mostly empty, just a mattress on the floor, a few boxes, the bare essentials. But it was ours. Marcus opened a bottle of champagne at 11:30. We sat on the floor, backs against the wall, watching the city lights through the window. "Do you ever think about how we got here? How this all started?" "With me making a spectacularly unethical decision?"
With you taking a chance." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I still can't believe you're here, that you chose this, chose me. Best decision I ever made. Even though I failed you, even though I manipulated your grade?" I turned to face him. "That was wrong, but you know what? If you hadn't done it, I would have graduated in May and moved to New York, and we never would have happened. You never would have told me how you felt. I never would have admitted how I felt about you, and we'd both be alone right now wondering what if. So you're glad I sabotaged your grade?" "I'm glad we found each other." I kissed him softly. "Everything else is just details." At midnight, fireworks exploded over the city. We kissed on our mattress on the floor of our empty apartment, and I thought, this is what happiness feels like. January brought new jobs and new routines. My publishing house was everything I'd hoped for, busy and challenging and filled with passionate people who loved books as much as I did. The work was hard, but I loved every minute of it. Marcus thrived at Columbia. His colleagues were brilliant, his students engaged. For the first time in years, I saw him truly excited about teaching. We fell into a rhythm. Morning coffee together before we both left for work, texts throughout the day, dinner together most nights comparing stories about our respective chaos, weekends spent exploring the city, finding our favorite spots. It wasn't perfect. We argued sometimes about dishes, about schedules, about whose turn it was to do laundry, but even the arguments felt significant, felt real. This was a life we were building together. In March, we ran into some of Marcus's old colleagues at a conference. They looked at us, at the way I stood close to him, the way his hand rested on my back, and I saw judgment in their eyes. "That's inappropriate," one of them muttered to another, not quietly enough. Marcus heard. His hand tightened on my back, but he kept his expression neutral. Later, in our hotel room, he was quiet. "Are you okay?" I asked. "They think I'm a predator," he said flatly. "They think I groomed you, manipulated you into this relationship." "Who cares what they think?"
I care. His voice cracked. I care because part of me worries they're right. That I did manipulate you. That you're here because I changed your grade and you felt obligated. Stop. I crossed to him, grabbing his face. Look at me. Really look at me. Do I look like someone who's been manipulated? No, but do I look unhappy? No. Then stop letting their judgment poison what we have. I kissed him hard. Yes, how we started was unconventional. Yes, you made some questionable choices, but I made my own choices too. I chose to stay. I chose to love you. I chose this life, and I'd choose it again 1,000 times over. Really? Really, I smiled. Now stop spiraling and take me to bed. He did, and afterward, wrapped in his arms, I knew without a doubt that we were exactly where we were supposed to be. April brought another complication. "I think we should get married," Marcus said one Sunday morning. I choked on my coffee. "What?" "Not right away, but eventually." He looked nervous, uncertain. "I know it's fast, and I know we're still figuring things out, but Kai, I don't want anyone. I want you, for the rest of my life." My heart hammered. "Are you proposing?" "Not officially, not yet. I want to do it properly, with a ring and planning and—" He stopped, running his hand through his hair. "I'm making a mess of this. What I'm trying to say is that I see a future with you, a real permanent future, and I want to know if you see that too." Did I? 6 months ago, I'd been terrified of commitment, of settling down, of giving up my dreams. But now I couldn't imagine a future without Marcus in it. "I see it," I said. "I see us, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I see Sunday mornings like this, and arguments about whose turn it is to cook, and making love on lazy Saturday afternoons. I see a life." Relief flooded his face. "Really? Really?" I moved into his lap, straddling him. "But if you're going to propose, do it right. I want the ring, the planning, the whole romantic gesture."
Noted. His hands found my hips. How do you feel about skywriting? Don't you dare. He laughed, pulling me down for a kiss. In June, Marcus proposed properly. He took me back to that cabin where we'd spent our first weekend together. The same lake, the same pine trees, the same feeling of being completely isolated from the world. We spent the day swimming and hiking, and I didn't suspect anything until sunset when he led me out to the dock. "Remember when you asked me what the ending of my book was?" he said, taking both my hands. "The one about the professor and the student?" "That one," he smiled. "I figured it out. The ending." "Yeah?" "Yeah." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "It ends with him realizing that she wasn't just some forbidden temptation. She was his future, his home, the person he wanted to spend every morning and every night with for the rest of his life." Tears blurred my vision. "Kai Chen," he opened the box to reveal a simple silver band. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said, voice breaking. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto my finger, then stood and kissed me as the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. "I love you," he whispered against my lips. "I love you too." That night, we made love on the dock under the stars, and I thought about how far we'd come, from stolen kisses in locked offices to this, a promise of forever. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked, afterward, lying in his arms. "Changing my grade, starting all of this?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I regret the ethics of it. I regret putting you in a position where you felt trapped. But do I regret that it led to this? To us? Never." "Good answer." He's had time to practice. He kissed the top of my head. "What about you? Do you regret staying? Deferring New York?" "Not even a little bit." I tilted my head to look at him. "Marcus, you taught me something important. You taught me that success isn't just about career achievements or prestigious positions. It's about building a life that makes you happy. And this life, with you, this makes me happy." He pulled me down for a kiss, deep and slow and perfect. "We should probably go inside," he murmured, eventually. "It's getting cold." "In a minute. I want to stay here a little longer, just us and the stars." So we did. We got married in September, exactly 1 year after I'd graduated. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family in a garden in Brooklyn. My parents came, still uncertain about the age difference, but trying. Marcus's parents flew in from Ohio, warm and welcoming in a way that made my chest ache. Professor Chen came too, surprisingly. He pulled Marcus aside before the ceremony. "I owe you an apology," he said. I couldn't hear the full conversation from where I stood, but I saw Marcus's expression soften, saw them shake hands. Later, Marcus told me what Chen had said. "I judged you too quickly. I see now that this is real, that you're good for each other. I'm sorry for the gossip, for making things harder than they needed to be." It didn't erase the fear we'd felt, the weeks of looking over our shoulders, but it was something. I wore a simple gray suit. Marcus wore navy. We wrote our own vows. "Kai," Marcus said, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "you walked into my classroom 2 years ago and turned my world upside down. You challenged me, frustrated me, fascinated me. You made me want to be braver, to take risks, to believe in happy endings. I promise to spend the rest of my life making you as happy as you've made me. I promise to support your dreams, even when they scare me. I promise to love you through every challenge, every obstacle, every unexpected twist. You're my present and my future, and I can't wait to spend forever with you." By the time he finished, I was crying. "Marcus," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady, "when you failed me, I thought my life was over. Turns out it was just beginning. You taught me that the best things in life aren't always safe or planned or appropriate. Sometimes they're messy and complicated and a little bit scandalous, but they're worth it. You're worth it. I promise to keep choosing you every single day. I promise to remind you that you're worth fighting for when you forget. I promise to love you even when you're being impossible, which is often." The guests laughed. "I promise to build a life with you that's better than any story we could write. Because this, us, this is the happy ending I never knew I was searching for." We kissed as husband and husband while our friends and family cheered, and I thought, this is everything. The reception was held at a small restaurant in Brooklyn. We danced to old jazz music, ate too much cake, and laughed until our faces hurt. "How does it feel?" Marcus asked as we swayed together on the dance floor. "The same," I said, "but also completely different, like everything clicked into place." "I know what you mean." He pulled me closer. "Thank you, by the way." "For what?" "For taking a chance on me. For seeing past the mistakes I made to who I was trying to be." "Marcus," I cupped his face, "stop thanking me for loving you. It's not a favor, it's not charity, it's the easiest thing I've ever done." He kissed me, soft and sweet, and I heard camera shutters clicking. Tomorrow, those photos would go on social media. People would see them. Some would judge, some would whisper about the professor who married his former student. I didn't care anymore. Let them talk. Let them judge. They didn't know our story, the real story, not the salacious version they'd invented. They didn't know about the nights Marcus held me while I cried about work stress. They didn't know about lazy Sunday mornings reading the paper together. They didn't know about the inside jokes, the shared looks, the way we fit together like puzzle pieces. They didn't know what we'd overcome to get here. And honestly, that was fine. Our love didn't need their approval. It only needed us. 2 years later, Marcus's book was published. It was called Office Hours, and it was brilliant, a nuanced exploration of power, ethics, and love in academic settings. The ending was happy, but complicated, acknowledging both the beauty and the messiness of the relationship. "It's us," I said, reading the advance copy in our apartment. We'd moved to a bigger place in Park Slope, 2 bedrooms so Marcus could have an office for writing. "It's us, but not quite us." "It's the us we could have been," Marcus said, "if things had gone differently." "I like our version better." "Me too." The book did well. Excellent reviews, respectable sales, even some award buzz. Marcus did interviews, and inevitably they asked about the inspiration. "It's fiction," he always said carefully, "but like all fiction, it's informed by real experiences and observations about power dynamics in professional relationships." He never said it was about us, but people guessed anyway. Some of the reviews were harsh. "Romanticizes unethical behavior," one said, "fails to grapple with the inherent power imbalance." Others were kinder. "A thoughtful meditation on desire and ethics," wrote one reviewer. "Ashford doesn't shy away from the complications of his premise." I read every review, even the negative ones. "You shouldn't torture yourself," Marcus said, finding me hunched over my laptop one evening. "I'm not. I just want to understand how people see us, see you. And some people will always think you're a predator, that I'm a victim." I closed the laptop, meeting his eyes. "But you know what? Those people don't know us. They don't know that you're the kindest, most ethical person I've ever met, that you've spent months agonizing over whether being with me was right, that you've spent years making sure I never feel pressured or obligated. You did manipulate me, though, changing my grade, yes, we've established that." I moved to sit on his lap. "But you know what? I'm glad you did it, because if you hadn't, I would have left, and we never would have had this. That doesn't make it right."
No, but it doesn't make us wrong either. I kissed him softly. We're both complicated people who made complicated choices, and we're happy. Isn't that what matters?
"When did you get so wise?"
I had a good teacher. He smiled, pulling me closer. "I love you. I love you too." 5 years after we met, I got a promotion, senior editor at the publishing house. It came with a significant raise, more responsibility, and the respect I'd been working toward. Marcus took me out to celebrate at an expensive restaurant downtown. "I'm so proud of you," he said, raising his wine glass. "You've worked incredibly hard for this." "So have you." He'd been promoted to full professor the previous year, and his second book was nearly finished. "We've both done well." He set down his glass, expression turning serious. "Kai, I've been thinking about something." "What?" "I want to have a family. With you. I want kids, or at least one kid. I want to build that life together." My heart stuttered. We'd talked about this before, vaguely, hypothetically, but this felt concrete, real. "Adoption?" I asked. "If you want, or surrogacy, or I don't know. I haven't figured out the logistics. I just know that I want it, with you." I thought about a tiny human with Marcus's eyes and my stubbornness, about teaching them to love books, to be brave, to fight for what they wanted. "Okay," I said. "Okay. Let's do it. Let's have a family." The smile that spread across his face was incandescent. "Really? Really?" I laughed at his expression. "Did you think I'd say no?" "I wasn't sure. You have your career, and I can have both, a career and a family. Women do it all the time. So can we." He reached across the table, taking my hand. "Have I mentioned lately that I love you?" "Not in the last hour." "Then I'm overdue. I love you, Kai, more than I ever thought possible." "I love you too." The ride back to his apartment was charged with anticipation. His hand rested on my thigh the entire drive, a promise of what was coming. Inside, he barely gave me time to close the door before he was on me, backing me against the wall, kissing me like he'd been starving for it all evening. "Bedroom," I gasped between kisses. "Marcus, bedroom." "Here," he growled, hands already working at my shirt buttons. "Right here. I can't wait." His urgency sent heat flooding through me. We'd been together for months now, but it still felt new every time, still felt electric. My shirt hit the floor. His followed seconds later. His hands were everywhere, my chest, my sides, sliding down to grip my hips and pull me flush against him. "You're so beautiful," he murmured, lips trailing down my neck. "So damn beautiful." "Marcus," my breath caught as his teeth grazed my collarbone. "Please." "Please what?" His hand slid to my belt, fingers working it open with practiced ease. "Tell me what you want." "You, just you." We barely made it to the bedroom. Clothes left a trail through the apartment, my pants in the hallway, his near the door. By the time we tumbled onto his bed, we were both down to nothing, skin against skin, the heat between us almost unbearable. He took his time then, despite his earlier urgency. His hands mapped every inch of me like he was memorizing geography. His mouth followed, leaving trails of fire across my chest, my stomach, lower. When he finally touched me where I needed him most, I nearly came apart. "Not yet," he said, voice rough. "I want to take my time with you." "We have all night," I managed. "Not long enough." He kissed the inside of my thigh. "A lifetime wouldn't be long enough." He made good on his promise to take his time. Every touch was deliberate, every kiss purposeful. He knew exactly how to make me fall apart, knew what I needed before I could ask for it. When he finally moved over me, settled between my thighs, I was already trembling. "Look at me," he said, one hand cupping my face. "I want to see you." I met his eyes as he pushed inside, slow and careful despite the desperation I could see in his expression. The sensation was overwhelming, fullness and heat, and intimacy so intense it bordered on too much. "Okay?" he asked, stilling. "More than okay." I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him deeper. "Marcus, please move." He did, setting a rhythm that had us both gasping. His forehead pressed against mine, our breath mingling, eyes locked. This wasn't just physical, it was connection, pure and complete. "I love you," he said, voice breaking. "God, Kai, I love you so much." "I love you too." My hands fisted in his hair, holding him close. I love you. I love you." The words became a mantra as we moved together, bodies finding a perfect synchronization. When I finally shattered, it wasn't just my body, it was every defense, every wall, every fear I'd been holding on to.
Marcus followed moments later, my name on his lips like a prayer. Afterward, we lay tangled together, hearts still racing, skin slick with sweat. He pulled the blanket over us, tucking me against his chest. "That was—" I started. "Yeah," he agreed. "It was." We lay in comfortable silence for a while, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder. "Kai," he said eventually, "I meant what I said earlier, about the future, about marriage. I know. I'm serious. When you're ready, when we're ready, I want to spend the rest of my life with you." I tilted my head up to look at him. "You already have me, Marcus. You've had me since the moment you looked at me like I was the only person in the room." That was the first day of class, when you answered that question about Mrs. Dalloway. I looked at you and thought, I'm in trouble. You were. I was. He kissed my forehead. Best trouble I've ever been in. Years later, people would ask me if I regretted it, falling for my professor, risking everything for a forbidden love. I never did, because Marcus taught me something more valuable than any literary theory, that love is worth fighting for, even when it's complicated, especially when it's complicated. We built a life together, not perfect, but real. We had arguments and makeups, we had late-night conversations and lazy Sunday mornings. We had everything that matters. And it all started with a failed grade and a professor who couldn't let me go. Some might call it unethical, inappropriate, wrong. I call it fate. Because sometimes the best things in life don't follow the rules. Sometimes they write their own story, messy and beautiful and absolutely worth every risk. Marcus was my professor, my lover, my partner, my home, and I wouldn't change a single moment of how we found each other. Not even the failing grade, especially not the failing grade, because that F led me to forever. And forever with Marcus Ashford, that's the only grade that matters. The end.